In 2020, Brad Pitt stood before a crowded room of his peers and admitted something that most of us are too terrified to say out loud. He has spent 30 years failing. Some projects worked. Most didn't. His advice? Don't stress on the misses. Just get to the next one. It sounds like a Hollywood cliche, but it is actually the most profound mathematical truth in existence. We are taught that success is a steady climb, a series of A grades and consistent wins. But the titans of history, Picasso collectors Walt Disney, Warren Buffett, and Jeff Bezos, know a different secret. Success isn't about being right most of the time. It's about being spectacularly right 1% of the time and simply surviving the other 99%. This is a story of tales, the extreme outliers that drive the entire world. In 1936, a Jewish teenager named Heinz Berggruen fled Nazi Germany. He arrived at UC Berkeley with nothing but a background in literature and average grades. To anyone watching, he was just another face in the crowd. Fast forward 64 years to the year 2000. Berggruen walks into the German State Museum. He isn't there to look at the art. He's there to sell it. He presents a collection of Picassos, Clays, and Matisses. The German government pays him 100 million euros, a fraction of its private market value, which exceeded $1 billion. How did one man accidentally assemble the greatest private art collection in history? Horizon Research eventually cracked the code. Berggruen didn't have a crystal ball. He operated like an index fund. He bought vast quantities of art. He didn't need every painting to be a masterpiece. He just needed to hold the collection long enough for the 1% subset, the tails, to emerge as billion-dollar winners. He didn't find Picassos. He bought enough art that the Picassos eventually found him. If you want the real strategies that build billions, not theory, hit subscribe right now and join our community to build real wealth together. In 1928, Mickey Mouse made Walt a household name, but fame is not the same as fortune. Between 1928 and 1937, Disney's studio produced over 400 cartoons. Audiences loved them, but the bank accounts didn't. By 1937, the studio was drowning in debt. Employees were walking out. The dream was dying. Then came 83 minutes of film called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. In just 6 months, it earned $8 million, enough to pay off every debt, build a new studio, and launch an empire that still dominates the globe. Think about that math. 400 failures, but one tail event that represented only 0.2% of the output accounted for 100% of the success. As author Morgan Housel notes, anything huge, profitable, or influential is almost always a tail event. This isn't just a story about art and cartoons. It is the fundamental law of capitalism. Whether you look at venture capital or the safe public markets, the math of failure is identical. Look at those numbers. In the Russell 3000, the safe bet of American stocks, 4 out of every 10 companies are essentially total failures. They lose 70% of their value and never recover. And yet, the index has grown 73-fold since 1980. How? Because the 7% of monster stocks carry the dead weight of the other 2,900 companies. Success in the stock market isn't about avoiding the 40% that fail. It's about making sure you own the 7% that go to the moon. Even the greatest investor of all time isn't immune to this math. In 2013, Warren Buffett made a startling admission. Over his lifetime, he has owned between 400 and 500 stocks. He made his entire multi-billion-dollar fortune on just 10 of them. Charlie Munger, his partner, was even more blunt. If you remove those 10 stocks, Berkshire Hathaway's record is pretty average. This pattern repeats inside the winners themselves. Amazon's massive 2018 success wasn't because every department was perfect. It was because Prime and AWS acted as tails for the rest of the company. Apple's trillion-dollar valuation is a tale driven almost entirely by a single product, the iPhone. If 99% of things fail, how does a person win? The answer lies in behavior. Between 1900 and 2019, an experiment followed 3 types of investors: Sue stayed invested every month through every war and recession. Jim and Tom tried to time the market, selling when things looked scary. By the end, Sue had 75% more wealth than the others. Why? Because the market's total returns are often concentrated in just a few weeks or months. If you panic and miss those tail months, you miss the entire wealth creation event of the century. As Napoleon once said, a military genius is simply the man who can do the average thing when everyone else around him is going crazy. So, how do you apply the tail playbook to your own life? The 5 rules of survival. Expect 50% failure. Understand that being wrong is the cost of admission. Diversify your attempts. You need more shots on goal to find your one tail event. Survive the recessions. You cannot win if you're forced to exit the game. No leverage. Using debt to invest turns a temporary dip into permanent ruin. Be average when others panic. Simply staying the course makes you an outlier. Look up at the night sky. There are 100 billion planets in our galaxy. As far as we know, only one is life. You are a tail event. Your existence is a 1 in a billion occurrence. Building wealth requires the same math. You don't need to be a genius every day. You just need to stay alive, control your downside, and wait for that 1% to compound. Because in the end, tails don't just win the game, they drive the entire universe. The core of success is captured by George Soros. It's not whether you're right or wrong that important, but how much money you make when you're right, and how much you lose when you're wrong.